Let's start.
The folks in the back.
Sure. So we're going to wave now, Jamie. So, oh, wait, we have to go over to that one over there. It's not on yet. There we go. Hi, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, Jim and Toby and Mitchell and John. Great to have you all here, and great to see everyone here at present as well. We're going to start with Moda Ani on page 70.
If you want to make this a little more gender neutral, which is hard in Hebrew, you can say, well, I'm going to say Moda because I'm a woman, she, her pronouns. You can say Modeh if you identified male. If you want something more neutral, you can try Modet, which is from Rabbi Vivian Mayer on Ritual Well, a great website. And for Melech, you can substitute Ruach. That was taught to me by, not to me directly. I heard that teaching from Rabbi Sandra Lawson online.
By the way, it's page 68.
Oh, thank you. Page 68. Moda
Ani lefanecha, Melech chai v'kayam, shechezarta v'nishmati b'chemla, b'chemla, Rabba emunatecha.
I forgot to ask for the slide. This is my English translation. I am grateful to be standing before the Spirit of all things. You return my soul to me with compassion, compassion. Great is your loyalty, Rabbi.
To take a giant breath in, hold on to it, and let it out slowly. Let's do one more. Deep breath in. Let it out. And with that, we bring in the gratitude that we have for the day. Beautiful sunshiny day. It's a little warm for me, but we'll take it compared to the cold of winter. The gratitude of having our community together, and especially the gratitude of the Indigenous people of our area who have been stewards of the land. We are grateful to their care and for allowing us to be part of that care in supporting the Indigenous people of the area. We'll continue with Matovu on page 74. Oh. I'm Rabbi Debbie Serrano, and this is Diana, and thank you to Diana for leading us this morning, and also to Jamie for her support, and Ronnie for being a wonderful shamash. Thank you all, thank you.
So some of you have heard this before. In honor of Folk Life, which was last weekend, seems like a really long time ago. Anyone else go to Folk Life this year? No, okay. In honor of folk life and American folk tradition, I actually made this arrangement way back over 10 years ago, I think, when Ken Burns did his country music. Speaking of country music, as we were just a few minutes ago, some of us did his country music special on PBS. So this is Matovu, which you can find on page 74. Oh, Jamie, I'm sorry. Do you still have the slide for this one? Okay, Jamie's going to put, so the lyrics are the same as in the book, but the way I sing it, I kind of put it up there so you can follow along to the arrangement. And I suspect many of you know this tune. If you don't, you'll pick it up pretty quickly. Matovu ohalecha Yaakov, Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael, Vani berov chastecha avo vetecha, Eshtacha ve'echa kodshecha ve'yiratecha, Matovu ohalecha Mishkan Kavodecha, Ma Tovu Ohalecha, Yaakov, Yaakov, Mishkenotecha, Yisrael, Vani tefilati lecha, Adonai et ratzon, Elohim berov chastecha, Eneni behemet yeshecha, Ma tovu ohalecha, Yaakov, Yaakov, Mishkenotecha, Yisrael.
Number 77 at the top of the page. As I grow older and as I age and my body ages, this particular prayer becomes much more significant to me in my life, as there are things that are starting to say, I don't know if I want to be open, or I think I'm going to close up today. This is one of those where I'm grateful to be able to say the blessing, thanking God for my body functioning properly this morning so that I can get up and be here with you today. Together, let's read. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe. With divine wisdom, you have made our bodies, combining veins, arteries, and vital organs into a finely balanced network. Wondrous maker and sustainer of life, were one of them to fail, how well we are aware we would lack the strength to stand before you. Blessed are you, Adonai, source of our health and strength. Baruch atah Adonai, rofeh chol basar umafli la'asot. And we continue with Elohai Neshama on page 78.
And we're going to sing the Debbie Friedman version, which is pretty much the first few lines. Please join in. Elohai, Elohai, Neshama, Shenatata bi tehorahi. Elohai, Elohai, Neshama, Shenatata bi tehorahi. Ata verata, ata yitzarta, ata nefachta bi. Ve'ata meshamra bekirbi. Elohai, Elohai, Neshama, Shenatata bi tehorahi.
And it's my great blessing to invite Shelley Cohen to lead us in more blessings this morning.
So in the Talmud, in Tractate Brachot, which teaches us what blessings to say and when and how to say them, it strikes me that there's this tension between the keva, which is the instruction manual, how to, and the kavanah, which is the intention. And what I've come to see is that sometimes you come to this with keva, and maybe the intention will come, the kavanah will grow. And sometimes you come to it with kavanah, and you've got a lot of enthusiasm, and you'll get to the keva, you'll get to doing the right words in the right order. And so when we have this instruction to say 100 blessings a day, it is partly, yes, there are should be that many things in our lives to thank God for. And partly it's this practice of learning gratitude and learning to find kavanah, and in the course of these blessings, perhaps we'll find it. I have started saying these set of blessings every morning, and some days it's just, I go through the words, and some days I look around me and think, yeah. So let's see if we can find some of that together. Jamie, do we have we might have the non-binary God language up there on the screen, or if not, if you know it, join me in that, or use the traditional language that's in the book, or if God language isn't your thing, join me in the rest of it. I will go through mostly in Hebrew, but some in English, and join me in whatever language works for you. Bruche ateh havaya shchinu ruach haolam asher nelasech vivina lahavchin ben yom uven laila. Bruche ateh havaya shchinu ruach haolam, who opens the mind of the unwilling. Bruche ateh havaya shchinu ruach haolam, who frees the captive. Bruche ateh havaya shchinu ruach haolam, zokefeh kefufim. Bruche ateh havaya shchinu ruach haolam, roka haaretz al hamayim. Bruche ateh havaya shchinu ruach haolam, hamechine mitzadei gaver. Bruche ateh havaya shchinu ruach haolam, malbisheh arumim. Bruche ateh havaya shchinu ruach haolam, anoteneh le'aev koach. Bruche ateh havaya shchinu ruach haolam, hama'vireh shenamei na'udnu me'afapai. Bruche ateh havaya shchinu ruach haolam, she'asteni b'tselem Elohim. Bruche ateh havaya shchinu ruach haolam, she'asteni bat chorin. Bruche ateh havaya shchinu ruach haolam, she'asteni Yisrael. Bruche ateh havaya shchinu ruach haolam, ozerei Yisrael bigvura. Bruche ateh havaya shchinu ruach haolam, oterei Yisrael b'tifara. And it's our custom here to each join with one more prayer that comes from each from our individual hearts. So we'll start with the same 6 words in Hebrew and finish as you will. Bruche ateh havaya shchinu ruach haolam, chachmet harazim.
Eloheinu melech haolam,
6.
asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. And we continue with Pikudei de Zimra. Were you going to intro that?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Hazuke de Zimra, Songs of Praise, Verses of Praise. We're going to go on page 94 today with Baruch She'amar, excuse me. So originally these verses consisted only of Psalms 145 to 150. The practice was initiated by Rabbi Josa in the 2nd century. I think that's how we say it. Is it Yosa? Jose, Yosa. And for a long time they were optional. Of course, the prayer service has evolved and is still evolving over time. But Maimonides in the 12th century said that these verses should be recited in an upbeat mood, and he made them part of the service, of the regular service. He also said they should be recited slowly and wholeheartedly, and rushing through them defeats their purpose. Of course, in the Reformed tradition, or at least in the Beth Am Reformed tradition, we select one. You can flip through the book and see that there's a number of choices. And we do that with that full kavanah that Shelley mentioned. Please join me on page 94. Baruch she'amar v'haya ha'olam, Baruch hu. Baruch she'amar v'haya ha'olam, Baruch hu. Baruch oseh v'reshit, Baruch omer v'oseh, Baruch gozer u'mkayem, Baruch merachem al haaretz, Baruch she'amar v'haya ha'olam, Baruch hu. Baruch she'amar v'haya ha'olam, Baruch hu. Baruch merachem al habriut, Baruch meshalem sachar tov l'riav, Baruch haylad v'kayam l'netzach, Baruch podeh u'matzil, Baruch shemo, Baruch she'amar v'haya ha'olam, Baruch hu. Baruch she'amar v'haya ha'olam, Baruch hu. Baruch hu. Baruch hu. And let's conclude together in English at the bottom of the page, last 3 lines. With songs of praise we extol you, please join me, and proclaim your sovereignty, for you are the source of life in the universe, one God, life of the universe, praised and glorious ruler, your name is eternal.
We continue with Chatzi Kaddish on page 106.
Please feel free to join me for the whole thing or chant responsively. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei rabbah, v'yamad yivrach yirutei, v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayehanu v'yamechon, u'chayeh dechol beit Yisrael, v'agalav izman kariv, v'yamru amen. Yehi shmei rabbah mevorach, le'olam me'amaya, yitbarach, yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitaleh, v'yithalal, shemei dekut shabrichu, le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, Damiran be'alma, v'emru amen. And we continue now on page 108 with the Baruch Hu. We have warmed up our bodies and we've warmed up our souls, and now we are actually telling God that we are ready to pray. As you chant responsively, I'll start out. And we ask you to rise in body or spirit at this point. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie.
we continue with Yotzer Or on page 110. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Yotzer Or uvore choshech Oseh shalom uvore et hakol Hameir la'aretz veladarim aleha berachamim Uvtuvo mechadesh bechol yom tamid ma'aseh v'reshit. Ma rabu ma'asecha Adonai, kulam bechochma asita, mal'a ha'aretz kinyanecha. Tit barach Adonai Eloheinu, al shevach ma'aseh yadecha, ve'al me'orei or sha'asita, yefa'arucha selah. Or chadash al Tzion ta'ir, v'nizkeh chulanu mehera le'oro, Baruch atah Adonai, Yotzer ha'me'orot. And on the next page. Ahava rabba ahavtanu, Adonai Eloheinu, chamla gedola vitera, chamalta aleinu, bavor avoteinu, ve'imotenu, Shabbat chuvecha, avotenu ve'imotenu, vatelamdem chukechayim, ken techonenu utlamdenu, hamrachem, rachem aleinu. Beten belibenu lehavin ulhaskiom, lishmoa liomadu lelamed, lishmor velasot. Ukayem ekol divrei, Talmud Torah techa be'ahava. V'ha'erinenu v'toratecha v'dabek libenu b'mitzvotecha v'yached levavenu le'ahava u'yira et shemecha v'lo nevosh v'lo nikalem v'lo Hagadol hanora batachnu Nagila v'nismecha bishuatecha V'havienu l'shalom me'arba kantvot ha'aretz v'tolichenu komemiyut le'artzenu ki el po'el Yeshuotata uvanu v'acharta v'keravtanu l'shimcha hagadol Sela be'emet lehodot lecha o yachedcha be'ahava Baruch atah Adonai habocher be'amo Yisrael be'ahava. And if it is your custom to rise for Shema, please do so now or remain seated. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Shema Yisrael Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto, Le'olam Vahed. Please be seated on the next page. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha uv'chol nafshecha uv'chol me'odecha ve'hayu ha'devarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavcha hayom alevavecha veshinantam levanecha vedibarta bam veshivtecha bevetecha uvlechtecha vaderech uvshochbecha uvkumecha ukshartam leot al yadecha V'hayu letatafot bein einecha uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha leman tizkeru ba'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'hayitem kedoshim lelohechem ani Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, lihayot lachem lelohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Adonai Elohechem, emet. And we continue with Micha Mocha on page 122 with our choir.
Micha Mocha ba'elim Adonai, Micha Mocha nedar b'kodesh lo ratihot, osef ele, osef ele.
שירה חדשה שבחו גאולים נושים חסרת הים יחד כולם הודו וימלכו ואמרו
Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed, le'olam va'ed.
צורו ישראל כולה בעזרת ישראל ובתכנו לך יהודה וישראל גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו צבאות שמו קדוש ישראל
Baruch atah, Adonai, Baruch atah, Adonai, Baruch atah, Adonai, God Israel.
Now we turn to the central prayer of our morning service. So central, it's called tefillah, which means just prayer, but we also call it the Amidah, which means standing. So I invite you to rise in body and or spirit, and please join me on the even pages. We'll continue through to Eloheinu communally, and Rabbi Debbie will introduce the silent prayer. And when you're done with your silent part, you may be seated. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei hakol v'zocher chasdei avot v'imahot, u'mevi geulah livnei v'neihem leman shemo be'ahava. Melech ozer u'moshiach u'magin, Baruch atah Adonai, Magin Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechaye hakol atara lehoshia, Morid hatal, Mechalkel chaim bechesed, Mechaye hakol berachamim rabim, Zomech noflim verofeh cholim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato, Lishanei afar, Michamocha bal gevurot, Umido melach, Melech memit umechaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'neiman atah l'hachayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai, Mechaye hakol. 130. Nekadesh et shimcha b'olam, Keshem shemakdishim oto b'shmei marom, Kakatuv al nevi'echa, V'kara zeh ve'amar, Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzevaot, Melo kol haaretz, Kevodo. Adir, Adirenu, Adonai, Adonenu, Badir Shimcha b'chol haaretz, Baruch kevod Adonai mimkomo. Echad hu Eloheinu, hu Avinu hu Malkeinu, hu Moshienu ve'hu Yashmienu, berachamav lenei kol chai. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Yimloch Adonai leolam, Elohai Zion, ledor vador. Hallelujah. Ledor vador nagid God lecha, Netzach netzachim kedushatcha nakdish, v'shivchacha Eloheinu mipinu lo yamush, leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh.
I'm going to take a little rabbinic prerogative, and if you want to do Kiddushat Hayom, to include it in your own tefillah, but I would love to read page 139, Modim anachnu lach. For the expanding grandeur of creation, worlds known and unknown, galaxies beyond galaxies, filling us with awe and challenging our imaginations. Modim anachnu lach. For this fragile planet Earth, its times and tides, its sunsets and seasons, Modim anachnu lach. For the joy of human life, its wonders and surprises, its hopes and achievements, Modim anachnu lach. For human community, our common past and future hope, our oneness transcending all separation, our capacity to work for peace and justice in the midst of hostility and oppression. Modim anachnu lach. For high hopes and noble causes, for faith without fanaticism, for understanding of views not shared. Modim anachnu lach. For all who have labored and suffered for a fairer world, who have lived so that others might live in dignity and freedom. Modim anachnu lach. For human liberties and sacred rights, for opportunities to change and grow, to affirm and choose. Modim anachnu lach. Together we pray that we may live not by our fears, but by our hopes, not by our words, but by our deeds. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulcha na'eh lehodot. We continue silently. You might choose the words through page 142 or your own special thoughts and prayers, and please be seated at any time.
Page 142, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, Adonai, my rock and my redeemer. Ratzon, imrefi, v'hegion libi lefanecha. Ratzon, imrefi, v'hegion libi lefanecha. Adonai
HaTorah. Our words will be Al Shlosha Devarim, on three things the world stands. And I'm just getting that page number. It's page 249. I'm just looking to see, is there anybody who would like to carry?
Jim Dykes is going to be
Jim
our
Dykes
Torah carrier.
is going to
Sorry.
carry Torah, so come on up, Jim. Thank you. And we will continue with Al Shlosha as we open the ark. I invite you to rise.
Al Shlosha Devarim, Al Shlosha Devarim, Al Shlosha, Shlosha Devarim, Ha'olam, Ha'olam Omeid. Al Shlosha Devarim, Al Shlosha Devarim, Al Shlosha, Shlosha Devarim, Ha'olam, Ha'olam Omeid. Al HaTorah ve'al Havodah ve'al Gemilut Hasadim. Al HaTorah ve'al Havodah ve'al Gemilut Hasadim. And together we turn to page, sorry. For the Shema on page 248, once again, we chant the watchword of our people. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemu, Romemu, Romemu, Adonai Eloheinu, Ehishtachavu, Lahar Kodsho, Romemu, Adonai Eloheinu, Vehishtachavu, Lahar Kodsho, Ki Kadosh Adonai Eloheinu, Romemu, Ki Kadosh Adonai Eloheinu, Romemu, Romemu, Adonai Eloheinu, Vehishtachavu, Lahar Kodsho, Romemu, Adonai Eloheinu, Vehishtachavu, Lahar Kodsho. Let's hear some good keys. Ki Kadosh Adonai Eloheinu, Romemu. Ki Kadosh Adonai Eloheinu, Romemu.
So this is the anniversary of my bat mitzvah. And it was in 1974. So what does that make that? 40 years? 50 years? 50 years, right? It's 50 years. It's kind of crazy to think about that. And so my mother, after she died, I found a box of my stuff, and she had kept the folder that had, back in the day, we had an LP with the Torah portion on it and the little booklet that I worked with the cantor on it, and my Devar Torah was in there. And it was kind of interesting to see into my own 12-year-old mind and what that was like. And it was an interesting piece. So yes, this parashah is about numbers. It is called Bamidbar, which does not mean numbers in Hebrew, but it is about numbers. And it talks about 600,000 men, does not talk about the women. And it's the 600,000, the word Aleph is the Hebrew word. And Torah scholars really believe it was not 1,000 as in our modern counting time. That Aleph, in fact, probably referred to a troop of warriors and probably was closer to 15 or 20, maybe as many as 30 men. So the numbers in our actual modern day numbers were likely far, far less than 600,000. And if you think about 600,000 men, if every one of them had a mother and a sister, that would have been, 2 million people leaving Egypt simultaneously. It would be the equivalent of the entire King County standing up and walking to Spokane. So it seems a little ridiculous that it would be 2 million people. So numbers are funny in Torah. They're funny. The number of years in Genesis, they're hard to count. So why are we counting? Why are we counting? I ask that question as we read this parasha. Did you want to add anything there?
Yes, I'm going to add a few words to that. Thank you, Rabbi Debbie. Bamidbar, you'll hear actually Bamidbar, the name of this portion and the book, both, in my chanting. I thought, so from a modern perspective, one might find this section a little uninteresting, but I know every Torah portion can be made so interesting, and I know Carl Levinson is going to make it super interesting for us in just a little bit. But after reading through it, I decided, well, this is Numbers. We call it Numbers in English, and I assume in Greek. So I thought I would chant some actual numbers. So there's a lot of numbers in this parsha. I'm only going to do a small section. Earlier in the week, I was listening to Institute for Jewish Spirituality. Actually, I was doing the daily meditation, which I don't do daily, but I happen to do this one. And I heard a wonderful teaching about how when you hear this list of the people, in this, my particular case, what I'm reading is the men of military age, but what they're doing is they're gathering, and when we gather, we're in community, and we are also on the verge of Shavuot, where we gather as one people throughout time at Sinai to hear the revelation. So in gathering our military men and in thinking about Shavuot, we can see this as both a physical and we can both see this as physical and social strength. So also you'll notice I'm going to chant both the Hebrew and then I'm going to chant the translation. There's actually a number of different words that can be translated as to count in this portion. So for the word pikudehem, which you're going to hear at least 3 times, can be translated as they were counted, but I'm going to use it, I looked it up, I'm going to say the word muster, like when you muster the troops, not mustard, that might make you hungry for lunch, which is coming up soon. So you will hear that, and I just want to let you know in case, because it does sound a little like mustard to the ear. So let's get started.
Ya'amad la Torah, Ravi ben Yaakov Palea.
Is this the right page?
I got it. Good. There's the beginning. So it moved over.
Oh, yeah, there it is.
I don't see any numbers, it's all letters.
Cute.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach.
Page numbers.
Baruch Adonai hamvorach li'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam. Asher bochar banu mikol ha'amim. V'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
So Diana is going to be reading chapter 1, verse 19, and in the Old Plout, it's 1029, page 1029, in the New Plout, 900.
Kasher tziva Adonai et Moshe vayifkedem b'midbar Sinai vayehu b'nei Reuven bechor Yisrael toldotam lemishpechotam levet avotam v'mispar shimot legilgalotam kol zachar mi bein esrim shana v'mala kol yotzei tzava pekudehem l'mate Reuven shisha v'arbaim elef v'chamesh meot livnei Shimon toldotam lemishpechotam leveit avotam pekudav b'mispar shemot legilgelotam kol zachar mi bein esrim shana v'mala kol yotzei tzava pekudehem lemate Shimon tisha v'chamishim elef ushlosh meot livnei Gad toldotam lemishpechotam leveit avotam b'mispar shemot mi bein esrim shana v'mala kol yotzei tzava pekudehem lemate Gad chamisha v'arba'im elef v'sheish meot v'chamishim. Oh, I'm going to do the English. That's right. Got caught up in the moment. And it was done as commanded by God to Moses, and he counted them in the wilderness of Sinai. And there were from the house of Reuven, the oldest of Israel, by the genealogies of their families and the house of their fathers. And they were counted by name individually, all the males from the age of 20 years and above, all who could go out to war. And they were mustered from the tribe of Reuven, 640,500. From the house of Shimon, by the genealogies of their families and the house of their fathers, they were counted by each, how should I do that? No, that's not the numbers. They were counted by name, each by name individually, all the males from the age of 20 years and above, all who could go out to war. And they were mustered from the tribe of Shimon, 950,300. From the house of God, by the genealogies of their families and the house of their fathers, they were counted by name. From the age of 20 years and above, all who could go out to war. And they were mustered from the tribe of God, 50,040,000 and 650.
Asher Koah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet b'chayei olam notav v'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yasher koach, Rani. And with the Torah out in front of us, we take a moment to call to name people who are in need of healing, a blessing for healing. If you're thinking of someone, please call their name out loud. Fran Grossman, Kathleen Scotty. And we continue with Mishiberach, which is on page 253.
Oh, we're going to have a slide for this one, Jamie. Sorry, I think I forgot to give you the slide cues. This is the Taubman Mishiberach. I just love this one. The literal words are not in the prayer book. Of course, the traditional Mishiberach prayer is in the prayer book. You can use whichever you like. Mishiberach Avotenu Abraham Yitzchak veYaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel vLeah Yevarech veYirapeh et hacholim Mishiberach Avotenu Abraham Yitzchak veYaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel vLeah Yevarech veYirapeh et hacholim El Narifan Allah El Narifan Allah El Narifan Allah El Narifan Allah Mishiberach Avotenu Abraham Yitzchak veYaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel vLeah Yevarech veYirapeh et hacholim Yevarech veYirapeh et hacholim.
Thank you. I would like to call up Galen and children to come help us dress Torah and lift Torah, and as Torah is lifted, we too will rise.
We're on the bottom of 252. V'zot Torah asher sam Moshe lifnei b'nei Yisrael al pi Adonai ve'ad Moshe. Torah, 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 Torah tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 Torah tziva lanu Moshe. 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 Yasher Koach, you may be
Please be
seated.
seated. That was a
And,
fabulous
Yasher
lift.
Koach, to all of our participants so far.
And it's wonderful to invite the fourth member of this family, Sarah, up to join us. I'm going to grab the Torah so Galen can do the blessing.
You want me to do the page numbers?
Page we on?
So am I on? We're going to be doing, for the Haftorah, We're going to do the whole thing. It's Hosea 2, 1 through 22. In the old Plough, starts on page 1252. And on the new Plough, it starts on page 917. The blessings for chanting, blessings to be chanted before the reading of Haftarah are on page 254. Galen is going to chant the blessings, and Sarah is going to read the verses for us. Feel free to join Galen in chanting the blessings if you like. Oh yes, turn on the mics.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar binvim tovim v'ratza v'divrehem hane'emarim be'emet Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'Torah u'Moshe abdo u'Yisrael amo u'vinviei ha'emet v'tzedek.
The number of the people of Israel shall be like the sands of the sea, not to be measured or counted. And where they were called, "You are not my people," they shall be called the children of the living God. The people of Judah and Israel shall be gathered together and choose for themselves a single head and rise up from the ground, for the day of Jezreel will be great. Call your brothers my people and your sisters loved by God. Complain against your mother, complain for she is no longer my wife, and I am not her husband. Let her remove her whorings from her face, her adulteries from between her breasts, or I will strip her naked and expose her as on the day she was born, and make her like the wilderness, turn her into a dry land, and kill her with thirst. And I will show her children no love, for they are children of whoring. Their mother played the whore. She who bore them acted shamefully, saying, I will go after my lovers who give me my bread and my water, my wool and my linen, my oil and my drink. So I am blocking her path with thorns, walling her in. She shall not find her way. However hard she pursues her lovers, she shall not catch them. She will look for them, but she shall not find them. Then she will say, let me go back to my first husband. I was better off then than now. She did not consider that I was the one who gave her the grain, the wine, and the oil. I gave her abundant silver and gold, which they used for Baal. Therefore, I am taking back my grain in its time, my wine in its season. I take away my wool and linen that she uses to cover her nakedness. I will uncover her shame in the sight of her lovers, and none will save her from my hand. I will make an end to her rejoicing, her pilgrim feasts, her new moons and Sabbaths, all her festivals. And I will destroy her vines and her fig trees, of which she said, they are my hire, given me by my lovers. I will turn them into a forest, and wild animals shall consume them. So I will punish her for all the feast days when she offered incense to the various Baals, and putting on her rings and jewels, she ran after her lovers, forgetting me, says the Eternal One. That is when I will entice her to me, lead her to the wilderness, and speak to her heart. From there I will give her back her vineyards, and make the valley of trouble the door of hope. There she shall respond as when she was young, when she came up out of Egypt. And on that day, says the Eternal One, you will call me my man, and no longer call me my Baal. For I will erase the names of the Baals from her mouth, and they shall no longer be mentioned by name. On that day I will make a covenant for them with beasts of the field, birds of the air, and with creeping things on the ground. I will remove the bow, the sword, and war from the land, and make them lie down in safety. I will betroth you to me forever. I will betroth you to me in righteousness and justice, in steadfast love and compassion. I will betroth you to me in faithfulness, and you shall know the Eternal.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, tzur kol haolamim, tzadik b'chol hadorot, ha'el ha'ne'eman, ha'omer ve'oseh, hamdaber umkayem, shechol devarav emet v'tzedek. al haTorah ve'al havodah ve'al hanviim ve'al yom haShabbat hazeh shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu likdusha v'limnucha lekavod ultifaret al hakol Adonai Eloheinu anachnu modim lach umevarchim otach yitbarach shimcha befi kolcha tamid leolam va'ed baruch ata Adonai mikadesh haShabbat.
I invite you to rise as the Torah is lifted. And we will return Torah to the Ark on page number 256. We all open the Ark.
On the bottom of the page. Etz chaim hi lemahazikim bavatom heha meushar. Etz chaim hi lemahazikim bavatom heha meushar. Shalom, 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 shalom. It is a tree of life to them that hold fast to it. All of its supporters are happy. It is a tree of life to them that hold fast to it. All of its supporters are happy. Last time. Shalom, 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 shalom. Thank you. Yashar Kach.
An interesting one.
Yeah, I suggest if you were bothered by it, you study it up a little.
Yeah, so Diana sent me an email a couple of days ago and said, I don't know where to stop this, like maybe 15, but it's a little more upbeat at 18. And I was like, well, if we're gonna go to 18 to be upbeat, we better finish the whole thing. And then I really sort of did a deep dive into it. And Hosea uses this metaphor of God and with a wife, and sort of Israel being that wife who was going to not always do the right thing. And I find that I just noticed in the New Plout, there's actually a little bit of commentary on that line that says, from now on, I will be known as Ishi. You will call me Ishi, meaning my man, as opposed to Ba'ali. Ba'ali, interestingly enough, is translated as both my Lord and my master and my husband. Ba'ali is the term, not used so much in modern Hebrew anymore. There's a different phrase that people are using to refer to their partner, a ben zug or a bat zug, and which means the son of the couple or the daughter of the couple, or probably, I don't know what the non-gendered is, because I still have not heard that there's non-gendered language in Israel yet. So this is a fascinating metaphor. I don't love that it's the woman who's identified here as the analogy, but on the other hand, there are pieces about that also have implications in terms of Israel being connected to that female piece, right? It's super fascinating. Yeah, have fun studying that one a little bit. It's my great honor to call up Carl Levinson to offer us a Dvar Torah today.
Our portion is the first in the book of Numbers, which in Hebrew is called Bamidbar, in the wilderness. There are lots of numbers in our portion, and numbers will be my topic, because numbers have been on my mind. So here's how the portion begins, and you'll be hearing this for the third time. I'm quoting. Adonai spoke to Moses in the wilderness of Sinai, in the tent of meeting, on the first day of the second month of the second year after the Exodus, saying, take a census of the whole congregation of Israel in their clans, by ancestral houses, according to the number of names. Take a census of every male individual from 20 years old and upward. That's how it starts. The census aims to count men of fighting age. Canaan is to be conquered. The people need to know what troops they can muster. To be counted is also to be mustered, as Diana told us this morning. You can measure power by numbers. You can measure might just by counting soldiers. The whole number we read of everyone able to go to war in Israel was 603,550. Again, power has a number, and details like that, an actual 6-digit number, makes the text seem strangely real. Actually, almost all of the 600,000 plus warriors will die before the fight that matters most. We can count, yes, but life is full of surprises, like 40 years of wandering in the desert. In any case, might, martial power, isn't really expressed by a number, is it? In the book of Judges, Gideon is still fighting as Moses had the Midianites and the Amalekites, and Gideon has 32,000 men. God says, Gideon, that's way too many. You'll never win with so many. Tell them to go home if they want to. And 22,000 depart, which reduces the number to 10,000. That's better, God says to Gideon, but not good enough. Sift them through a series of tests. And after testing, 300 remain, just 300. Perfect, God says. Now leave your swords at home and rout the enemy. And they do. That's a critique of numbers. Numbers don't always express strength. You can't measure strength, not any kind of strength, just by counting. Everything depends on whether the force is with you, whether God is with you. In the same way, a good book might take years to write, but if God is with you, it might take 10 days. In the same way, if you meet the person you're destined to marry, you might feel you know all you need to know in a few days, in a few hours, but in another way, 40 years won't nearly suffice. I've been married 45 years, and I can tell you. In the same way, Einstein worked on his special relativity theory. He worked it out in just a few months. But general relativity, which includes gravity, took him 8 years. And the unified field theory, which he worked on during all his years at Princeton, well, physicists are still working on it. The work hasn't been completed. Einstein numbered time more perfectly than anyone ever had in the history of the world, and it's staggering what he taught us. But you can't know if your task can be brought to completion by counting the years you expect to be able to allot for it. You might need a few months, or almost a decade, or you might need the help of future generations. Even Einstein had to learn that. Space is like that too. I have neighbors on my street in Seattle who are far more distant than my old friends in the Rockies, because I see my friends on Zoom, or I text them, or we just feel our nearness and preserve it. Space, the space we live in, can't really be measured with numbers, no more than time can, not for every purpose. See, not everything is countable, and we all know that. And that's what I want to think about this morning. I struggled with counting when I was a teacher because my job was to grade on a 4-point scale. You know, I taught philosophy, and I would ask students questions about God, beauty, truth, these high and luminous things. And often I couldn't find a number for a student's performance. I couldn't bear to say, the brilliant Mary made a 4.0 A+ comment about God, but the less brilliant John's comment about God was only 2.8 or B-. When people write about ultimate concerns, the quality of their thinking can't easily be turned into a number. Although, if I talked to a student, if we made a connection, a bond, I usually had the feeling, a definite feeling, about where the student was, how deep, how energetic, how motivated. But the feeling wasn't a number and didn't lend itself to ranking. To tell someone, well, you're average, an average student never felt right. You can count in average numbers, but not people. Again, we all know that. We all know that. And these are some of the reasons why the first time God asks for a census in the book of Exodus, God says that everyone to be counted has to be ransomed, or divine wrath will destroy all. Dear God, Moses might have asked, if you don't like counting, why are you asking us to count? Or if you do like counting, then why these terrible threats? I wonder what God would have answered. Sometimes I think math contains the secret of the universe. And sometimes, well, I think math distracts us too much. There is a special counting. Rabbi Ruth discussed it here last night. A counting that finds what's unique, what's incalculable in the thing a person counted. But that kind of counting is more like lifting up a face so it shines, and not every circumstance allows it. King David, too, takes a census, counting the fighting men of Israel. And all the sources agree that God is outraged when the census is taken, and God sends a punishing plague where 70,000 Israelites perish. There's a number for you. 70,000 die because you counted, and counting, which our high-tech age so much depends on, counting involves danger. The counselor Joab says to David, "Oh, my Lord, you should let Israel be numberless. Your numbering brought this plague." But the strange thing is that, while in the book of Chronicles, it's Satan who commands David to take the census, in Kings, it's God who commands it. That is, God commands the very counting, the very numbering that God can't endure and must punish. Is there any place else in Torah where God expressly commands what a moment later God punishes? Oh, it's very hard for God. It's very hard for us. And as Rabbi Debbie pointed out, if you want to know just how hard things are for God and for us, read Hosea, read the pages that you read. Everyone's heart is broken. God's heart, Israel's heart, all hearts broken. And if you identify the calculable with the masculine and the incalculable with the receptive and maybe leaning toward the feminine, then the problem with the senses and the tragedy in the life of Hosea and his wife and God all come together and point to our future, which is indeed full of risk. Even to God, numbers are vexing. And I have been tormented by numbers lately. Brett Stevens of the New York Times pointed out last week that during World War II, our bombs, killed 10,000 civilians in the Netherlands, 60,000 in France, 60,000 in Italy, and hundreds of thousands of civilians in Germany. In Japan, our bombs killed perhaps 1 million innocent people. And then we have the number 6 million. 2/3 of the Jews of Europe, the communities that gave us Einstein, Freud, Kafka, Simone Weil, Hannah Arendt, they're gone, vanished in the wind. 1 Jew in 3 in the world was slaughtered in the decade before I was born. There's a number for you. And we wonder about the children of the dead, the children who weren't even born. What might they have done in the world? What might we have done with their help? How can we count? How can we number what was destroyed before it ever emerged? On October 7th last year, more than 1,000 terrorists broke into Israel and murdered perhaps 1,200 innocent Israelis, raping, maiming, kidnapping, hundreds more. And a few weeks later, a rather unctuous European diplomat, but well-meaning, I'm sure, said to the Israelis, "Listen, Israel, I know you lost 1,200 people, but now you've entered Gaza and taken 3 times the number you lost. Isn't that enough revenge for you? Do you really need more revenge than that? Taking 3 lives for every single one." Well, that diplomat of Europe was in the grip of a Jewish stereotype, the vengeful Jews with a vengeful God. But it's a lie that Jews like to be vengeful. In fact, for 2,000 years we suffered much and avenged little enough. But I would want to suggest to the European diplomat that many of us, Jews in Israel and in the diaspora, are less fond of revenge than most. Every human being is a world, as the rabbis say. Every lost human life is a universe lost, and the loss of an innocent child, a single innocent child, just for the sake of revenge, is the loss of 1 child too many. And maliciously targeting the innocent, mocking the innocent, that's also unacceptable. Indeed, the enemy too has rights. America has to learn that. Israel has to learn that. The world has to keep that in mind. But on October 7th, Hamas expressed an almost boundless hatred for Israel, a hatred that can't be quantified, can't be numbered in any way. I can't express its enormity. Hamas knew what they were unleashing on their own people. They knew. But the joy of killing a single Israeli seemed irresistible to them, worth the sacrifice of 10 or 20 of their own in staining Israel's hands while the world watched was irresistible. And if I were a Gazan, if my family were a Gazan, I would want to be free of this mentality and this hatred, and I'd risk a great deal to be free of it, because I need to speak and think freely, and I need to wish other people well, and the people I love aren't human shields. Well, our text includes a beautiful image that Diana pointed out to me, an image of the priests packing up the tent of meeting. That is, the tent where you meet God. The priests packed up the vessels of the holy when it was time to break camp and to wander once again. In this wilderness, we all have to wander, but the sacred draws us forward to march. And when we rest, the sacred rests with us. There's another beautiful image in our portion. All the tribes of Israel camp around the tent of meeting, centered by the place where holiness is concentrated. We all need to find our center. And you know the old saying, God is a circle whose circumference is nowhere, whose center is everywhere. In other words, God is one. But the mystical secret of mathematics is that all numbers are based on the one, since the stuff of any number is a reiteration of one, and the one, or actual oneness, is beyond counting. To say that God is one, as we like to repeat every day, is to say that God is solitary, unique, incomparable, inconceivable, beyond any blessing, any song or praise or consolation, as our Kaddish, which we'll recite again before concluding the service, will remind us. Rabbi Ruth is teaching us to count the Omer. This is a great joy. We count each day, we count 7 times 7, we count indeed the different expressions of God, which are of course not God. And then comes Shavuos, the festival of revelation. Diana, too, in her lovely introduction to the chanting, spoke of Shavuos. We count the weeks, exactly 7 weeks, and then comes the Sinai revelation. And that which is revealed, what Moses sees on the mountaintop, brings counting altogether to an end. Shabbat Shalom.
Yasher Carl, thank you. We turn to page 282 for Elenu as we conclude our service, and we rise in body or spirit. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, latet gedula liyotzer breshit, shehu notei shamayim v'yosed aretz, umoshav yakaro b'shamayim mimal, ushchinatu zo b'bohem elorim, hu Eloheinu einod, v'anachnu korim, umishtahavim umodim, Lifnei melech malchei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu. 287. V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai l'melech al kol haaretz. Bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad. Ushemo echad. You may be seated.
And when we gather together, remember those who are no longer with us, on whose shoulders we stand, who have impacted us in all kinds of ways. And this week, in this past week, we laid to rest Ruth Gelb, the mother of Stephen Gelb and Alan Gelb, the mother-in-law of Lori Leipold, Susan Gelb, and grandmother of Jacob, Lydia, Lindsay, Matthew, and Emily. We are observing Shiva for Renee Bravman, husband of Stephen Bravman, father of Paul and Rachel, father-in-law of Catherine and David, grandfather of Max, and brother of Claude and Sydney. We're observing the Shloshim of Mary Sue Goldsmith, grandmother of Lisa Goldberg, great-grandmother of Aaliyah and Simon, and also Robert Klein, the husband of Cheryl Klein, father of Anna Klein, David Klein, and Teresa Valdez Klein, father-in-law of Spencer Dykstra, Claire Stenerson, and Noah Alinsky. And this week we observed the yard sites of Ludwig Balin, Claire Berger, Henry Blauer, Phil Bogich, Ida Brunel, George Buckley, Fred Dykes, Erwin Etter, Stephen Ficetti, Manya Feldman, Sigmund Feldman, Anita Feller, Saul Friedman, Natalie Gordon, Harold Gordon, Tilly Roger Greenberg, Joseph Grossman, Thelma Grunbaum, Yevsey Yurevich, Arlette Hyam, Hyman Harris, Susan Harris, Elaine Harris, Sybil Heller, Dorothy Jacobs, Helene Cadane, Herbert Katz, Keith Copeland, Aubrey Court, Stephen Kraftchick, Joe Kraft, Jill Kremen, Alex Krupinen, Leah Lawrence, Richard Layton, Harry Lipson, Celia Makis, I'm going to say this right, Mask Iverka. If I said that wrong, please correct me at the end. Fanny Matalan, Henriette McGregor, Dorothy Newman, Nancy Paris, Martin Parker, Beth Parker, Yetta Parker, Joe Rabinowitz, Sam Reinbach, James Riley, Daniel Avraham Robinson, Ruth Ruman, Martin Sabbath, Hannah Sable, Lawrence Shire, Evelyn Seidel, Yvette Silberman, Jeffrey Smith, Ada Stoller, Virginia Stout, Aram Tev, Maurice Varone, Dorothy Wexler, Bertha Wiener, Donna Wiener, Leon Wiener, Elizabeth Zadek. If there's somebody's name I mispronounced, please correct it now. If there's someone you'd like to add to the list, please share their names and their connection with them. And if you're online, please add a name into the chat if I have not included them. If you are in a period of mourning, whether it be Shiva, Shloshim, or the first year of mourning, I'll invite you to rise. If you're observing a yard site, please rise. Wow. And anyone who would like to support our community as we join together in the Kaddish Yatom, which can be found on page number 294. Yit Kadal v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah Be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei B'chayechon uvyomechon uvchaye dechol Beit Yisrael Ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru Amen Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam olamei almaya Yit barach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh V'it hadar v'it alev v'it halal shemei d'kedusha brichu le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata de'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shamaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav hu ya'aseh shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us, to all the inhabitants of earth, and to all Israel. And may all of you who are thinking of someone today, I hope you are comforted by wonderful memories. And together we say, Amen. Please be seated. Oh, you're going to do my favorite closing song. Thank you.
Your favorite? Okay.
My Sephardic roots are hanging in.
Yes. I'm 2% Sephardic.
2%.
Or somewhere around there. I just quickly wanted to say, this coming Friday is the installation of our Board of Trustees, and that's followed by a community potluck. So that should be festive. And next Saturday is also a Minyan Service, and Susan Klastrin, a temple member, is going to chant Torah and in celebration of the 35th anniversary of her adult bat mitzvah when she was growing up. Reform synagogues, many of them didn't even have bar mitzvahs, and you can ask me about that or Debbie about that later. And then also next Saturday, Mark Mayo, who taught religion school here for many years, is giving the Devar Torah, and it's the anniversary of his bar mitzvah as well. So
Lots of us this week.
next week. Okay.
And in addition, Tuesday night is Erev
thank you,
Shavuot.
yes.
And please join us for Tefillah that evening. It will also be covenant renewal honoring our 10th graders, as well as the following morning at 10:30, there will be Tefillah with Yizkor for anyone who would like to join us for festival services.
Yes, thank you, Rabbi Debbie.
Absolutely.
Page 327, we're going to keep going in our blessing, our 100 blessings a day count with Ein Kelohenu, the Sephardic version. Ein Kelohenu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkeinu, Ein Kamoshienu, non como nuestro Dios, non como nuestro Señor, non como nuestro Rey, non como nuestro Salvador. Mi Eloheinu, mi Adonenu, mi Malkeinu, mi Moshienu, quien como nuestro Dios, quien como nuestro Señor, quien como nuestro Rey,
quien como nuestro Salvador. No del Eloheinu, no del Adonenu, no del Malkeinu, no del Moshienu. Lo éramos a nuestro Dios, lo éramos a nuestro Señor, lo éramos a nuestro Rey, lo éramos a nuestro Salvador. Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu. Bendicho nuestro Dios, bendicho nuestro Señor, bendicho nuestro Rey, bendicho nuestro Salvador. Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu. Tu sos nuestro Dios, tu sos nuestro Señor, tu sos nuestro Rey, tu sos nuestro Salvador.
The blessing over the wine is on page 301. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen.
Let us gather in the center together.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz b'tei avon. Shabbat shalom, everyone. Oh, and there's lunch. Please stay for lunch. make it a kosher blessing.